It's a whole new language.
It is, but it looks like we are live, regardless of whether we understood the language. I don't know what a video log is, but we're live. I managed it. We're here. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody, all of our friends of Chia's Facebook page online. And my name's Rebecca. I'm Chia of California's General Manager. And I want to introduce you to Ed and Dina Bless. They're our Bay Area Regional Advisory Board members. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be putting your email address in the comments below this, so that families that are in the Bay Area, if they have homeschool questions, they know that they can contact you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about your homeschool journey, and what got you interested in homeschooling, and then how you help homeschool families now.
Okay, well, we homeschooled both. We have two girls, and we homeschooled them both all the way through. I always tell the story that when we first got married, and it's like as soon as we got married, people started asking if we were going to homeschool. And I always said, well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask him or the person who's going to have to do it. So, and he was always totally like, yes, absolutely, we should homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little more hesitant. So I attended my first Chia conference when my oldest was 3 years old, because I thought if we're going to do this, I want to kind of check things out and see what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, as we traveled through, felt like that's where God had us. And so kind of like, we're like, oh, well, we'll do it for this time, or we'll do it for this time. And then eventually we knew that we were in it for the long haul. So we have now graduated both of them. They both got multiple offers from colleges and scholarships and things like that, and they're now on their college journey. So that was kind of our homeschool journey.
Yeah, and on this side, when I started looking at it, I looked at my wife and I just thought, what could be a possible better teacher for my children?
Oh.
And it just stuck. So I encouraged her, but I do have another story that kind of adds on to this.
Yeah.
This has been very influential. We had influenced a lady who was pretty much a dropout in high school. She's one of what we would call the runt of the litter in her family of 5 kids, and she was always picked on. So she kind of grew up thinking she couldn't do anything. And we just encouraged her and her husband, and she actually took on eventually homeschooling her kids, even at the spite that came from her family. Two of the kids were actually teachers, and they just were constantly putting her down, but she took it on. And within a matter of 10 years, she actually became a principal of a Christian school. So, and homeschooled her child. And, it's one of those success stories where really this child would have been devastated in public school, but just turned out to be a superhero amongst his friends in the Christian school and with his mom and all that. So it's been, those types of success stories really encouraged us, and the influence that we've had in our community.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is that is a heartwarming story. It's just, I've heard several where homeschooling has been the salvation of that child, where they, we had in our homeschool group a number of years ago, a grandma whose daughter worked, but the granddaughter was going astray, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And grandma knew that all she needed was a change of scenery, and she could, and she brought her home, and within a couple of years got her back on track and graduated high school. And even more so than that high school diploma, which was in peril because of the bad influences, but was getting the child's life on track with the Lord, and it makes the difference, doesn't it? Homeschooling.
It does.
Makes the difference, yeah. So how are you helping homeschoolers today in your area?
Oh. Well, we just recently became the regional advisory board for this area. So we've been reaching out to groups, some of which already have an affiliation with Chia, some of which don't. We've been reaching out, trying to talk to people we get some phone calls and Facebook things and talk to people. I was just telling earlier the story that a friend of mine moved to Massachusetts, and I ended up on like a 2-hour Zoom call with this group of moms in Massachusetts last week because they were looking at homeschooling because they're having all the same problems that we are, some even more severe. And so,
and you even
brought
in one of the HSLDA, was it the attorneys or one of the
it was the legal assistant. So the attorney had another appointment, but his legal assistant got on with us and helped with the whole how to homeschool in Massachusetts, because it's very different. Those of us in California rejoice because Massachusetts is a lot more difficult than it is for us. But yeah, so got on with them. So it's been a lot of, and talking, I run all the time at church. We've been doing some outdoor services and some other ways, and people have, or people are asking and they put them in contact with us because they know that we homeschool as people are trying to figure out what to do and how it works and what do they want to do and all of those types of questions. So for the most part, what we're doing is just kind of coming alongside people, answering questions, talking, encouraging, giving hints and helps from our journeys, and from being in the homeschool world for over 20 years now. We there are lots of things that we've heard and resources that we have, so just trying to make as much available to people as we can.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I have to add that it would be easy to overlook the fact that we have a providential God, and he uses all things together for good for those that know him and are called according to his service. And in this time, what we're going through right now, it's a wonderful opportunity. We think that we're just stepping into it at this point in time because there's so much of the need that's growing and it will continue to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We think it's I mean, it is an unprecedented time, but it's not a surprise to God. And well, I'm thankful that you're there and you're helping families homeschool. There are so many new people coming into the community they have a lot of the same questions we had years and years ago, but they're having to dive in. They don't have the opportunity to test the water and research. And now they're realizing they have to do this. They're compelled for their children's best interests. And so I'm so thankful for you two being there and helping answer questions and sharing encouraging words, and just reminding moms and dads that God's in control right now, even though we don't feel like it. So I want to talk a little bit about, I realize we could talk for a really long time, but I want to talk a little bit about because most of the families coming into the community now that we've been in contact with are moms and dads with really young kids. And there's the temptation to try to duplicate the classroom at home. And also there's some unrealistic expectations about attention span. How long should you expect your 6 or 7-year-old to sit at the kitchen table with you and do schoolwork? So can you address that a little bit? I know you have lots of experience.
So yeah, they're going to have short attention spans. They're young kids. They're going to have short attention spans. That's just all there is to it.
No magic bullet.
And I talk about that, if you look at developmentally, 6-year-olds, their large motor skills, that's a huge thing at 6. And so then to go put them and have them sit down in a chair for 6 hours is like really against how their bodies and minds are working. So letting them be up and moving a lot is fabulous. When my kids were little and, in the elementary age groups, we did school. We always planned to start at 9. Some days we made it, some days not so much, But we were usually done by noon with all our formal homeschooling stuff. We would do other stuff in the afternoon, whether it was projects or we belonged to 4-H. My girls got a lot of stuff through 4-H with sewing and foods and nutrition and leadership and public speaking and all those types of things. So I think, allow them to have freedom, allow them to move around. Reading aloud is a huge thing. If you've got different age groups and how do I do this? You find a good book. The younger ones are going to listen, and especially if you find, sometimes they have these classics now that have these great illustrations, and they can look at that and cuddle up on the couch and read together. And they learn a ton just through the stories that you might choose. And it's a great family time, and they have a lot of fun together doing that. So that was always a good thing. When my girls, from when they were like babies, Ed would take bath time and give me a break, which was awesome. And he had we had these bath books, that had like different objects in them. And he would go through them, and, they learn all these words and colors and shapes and stuff just doing that. It was awesome thing.
Yeah, actually it was a pretty interesting thing for me, because I started giving baths to my daughters before they could speak. So we had this book with the pictures in it, a beach ball and an umbrella and a dog and a cat, and there's like 500 different pictures on these floating books. And my oldest daughter, when we started doing this, I would point to a picture and I would say ball, and she'd nod her head, and then I'd take her all through this. And then within really just a matter of a couple of weeks, I would say to her ball, and she would go boom, and she would poke the screen where it was, what the image was. And then I'd say, well, umbrella, and she would go, and then I'd say, well, coach, and she would fumble around, and I would hit it again. But literally, she had an understanding of audible understanding of 500 different images before she could even say any of them. So that really was a wonderful start and encouraging for me as a father.
That is so amazing. Yeah, they really do. And it's from reading, they really can grasp more from reading aloud. And so like Dina, as you said, from your younger children can enjoy some of these other, maybe children's classics that you would never expect them to read.
Right.
But they grasp so much about about our language, the English language, by reading aloud to them. And I think it's interesting you said bath time, because you kind of got them captive there, but it's a fun thing, right?
Sure.
And I remember, when I read aloud to my grandchildren now, or to my children, well, I go back to my days as a student, and our teacher used to make us lay our head down on the tape on our desks to listen to her read. And I guess that was what they had to do to keep you still or something, attentive. But I found that was unrealistic for my kids. I needed to let them play with Legos, or play with Play-Doh or cars, or draw. It was just unrealistic to expect very young children to sit and listen for a long time without moving. We even had rolling around, and sometimes I'd have to, draw them back, and, and sometimes you have to cut it short, because we do have sometimes unrealistic expectations of younger children.
And as moms, I think we have to remember, the rules in school are there because they have one adult and they have 30 to 35 kids. And they have to set up systems that are going to work, where they can keep everybody together and on the same page. We're home with, it's us, and it's, 1 to maybe 3 kids or whatever that we're actually working with schooling wise. So it just allowed you so much more freedom. And it really doesn't take as much instruction time as you think, because it's in the school, when it takes an hour for a subject, a lot of that is getting the kids to sit down, making sure everybody's on the same page in the book, making sure, there's a lot of that. It is an instruction. So, and we were talking earlier, and if they've got wiggles, let them get the wiggles out, use the opportunity, do things for a few minutes, and then have them run a couple of laps. And then you do, you do another activity, or continue in that one, and just give them, if they've got shorter attention spans than they're going to because they're younger, work with that, and it's okay.
Right. It's okay. I think, with my very youngs, like kindergarten, first grade, we didn't really spend more than 15 minutes at a time on close work, on lessons and drawing. And sometimes I had, sometimes they were into it and wanted to spend a little bit longer, but I felt it was important that we ended before they were hating it, ended on a positive note, on a success, rather than, oh, we're just frustrated, we're quitting for the day. Those days happen. Yep. But yeah, 10, 15 minutes for a kinder on close work is really, really plenty. Yeah. And don't work against the wiggles, take advantage of them, and make your lessons a little more fast paced. So, well, our time is up for our tips at 3, but thank you so much, Ed and Dina, for joining us. I appreciate you letting everybody get to know you a little bit better, and I really appreciate you sharing your experience. And I'm going to go ahead and end our transmission, but if you can hang out here, I'm not going to end our meeting. So that's it, folks. I'll put some notes in our comments below so you can reach Ed and Dina, and thanks again for joining us.